My name is Juliet. I'm 35 years old, living in Portland, Oregon, and working as a financial supervisor at a major insurance company. Last Christmas became a moment I'll never forget, not because of the twinkling lights or cheerful music, but because of a single message. A short text that seemed harmless, yet it opened the door to truths I had blindly avoided my whole life. Early on the morning of December 24th, just as I finished pouring my first cup of coffee, my phone lit up. It was a message from my mother. Juliet, there's a red-level snowstorm warning tonight. The family decided to cancel Christmas dinner just to be safe. Everyone's staying home, don't drive out, sweetheart. Love you. I stood still for a few seconds, my fingers tightening around the steaming ceramic mug. I had spent the entire week preparing for this gathering, buying gifts, wrapping them, baking nutmeg cookies from Grandma's old recipe, the ones my dad always loved. But I understood. Winters in Oregon are unpredictable, and the storm had been in the forecast for days, already icing over many roads. I didn't want to be a burden. Never had. So I replied with a short message. Got it, Mom. Everyone stay warm. Sending love to the whole family. I still remember how hard I tried to stay strong. I put on some old Christmas tunes, poured hot chocolate into a mug, and quietly placed a few cookies on a plate, though there was no one to share them with. I had planned to arrive early, help Mom set the table, and wrap a few more presents with my sister, Savannah. But instead, I curled up alone in my tiny apartment, the soft yellow lights barely enough to chase away the cold ache in my chest. I kept telling myself, surely everyone's at home. I'm not the only one. Mom wouldn't lie. Right. But what I didn't know was that message wasn't a warning. It was the opening act of a carefully orchestrated lie. A production where every role had been cast, except for mine. Around 3 in the afternoon, while I was mindlessly scrolling through social media to pass the time, something popped up that made my heart stop. A brand new post from my cousin Jessica. A perfect Christmas with the ones I love most. #family, #blessed. I could barely believe my eyes. In the photo, my parents, Savannah, aunts, uncles, even Grandma, all gathered around an elegantly decorated dinner table in Savannah's living room. Everyone wore matching red and green sweaters, beaming under the warm lights. There was no sign of a snowstorm. No snow. No strong winds. The sky outside the window behind them was clear and pale blue, typical Portland sunshine. They didn't even need coats. Me. I was the only one missing. My hands began to shake as I scrolled further. A video showed Savannah laughing as she opened a gift. Another clip showed my mom arranging cookies, the exact cookies I had baked the night before, meant to be delivered that morning. A sharp pain spread across my chest like someone had sucked all the air out of the room. That "everyone's staying home" text now felt like a slap in the face. No one had been snowed in. No one. But me. I dropped my phone onto the sofa and jumped to my feet, my heart pounding uncontrollably. The sting of rejection quickly turned to shock, then to searing anger. They lied to me. All of them. So easily. As if I had never truly been a part of them. And that moment, that single cruel realization, snapped me out of the illusion of a perfect family I had been clinging to for more than 3 decades. I just sat there staring at the screen, hoping that maybe if I looked long enough something would change. But the photos didn't vanish. There was no storm. No one stayed home. Just one brutal truth. They had celebrated Christmas and made sure I wasn't invited. I didn't cry. I wish I had. But my body was numb to the pain, like it had grown used to being left out. I pulled up Instagram again, checked the profiles of others in the family. My Aunt Ruby had posted a short video of the whole family raising their glasses together. A warm Christmas surrounded by love. The comments were flooded with hearts, snowflakes, and holiday blessings. I clicked on Savannah's post. A carefully edited photo, her in a vibrant red dress, holding a wine glass beside the Christmas tree, her face glowing with joy. Caption read, "The best holiday season ever. Thank you all for coming. Endless love." I scrolled down further. My grandparents, now nearly 80, were there. Even Uncle Ben, who lived all the way in Chicago, had made it. Everyone was there. Except me. Like a puzzle piece deliberately left out of the picture. I started remembering the other times. Last Easter, Mom texted, "Everyone's busy this year, no gathering planned." But I saw the photos later. A sunny picnic in the park, everyone wearing bunny ears and laughing. Grandpa's birthday was in July. I called to wish him a happy birthday on video, but Mom said, "He's sleeping, we're just doing something online this year." But later I saw pictures of a backyard party with a cake, and even a saxophone player. I had believed every one of those excuses. I believed I was just careless, too busy with work to blame anyone. I kept thinking, maybe it's my fault. No. I was excluded on purpose. Intentionally. Repeatedly. And I realized, just like the clear sky that day, sometimes the truth is right in front of us, we just don't want to look it in the eye. The next morning I woke up after barely sleeping at all. My head felt like it was filled with stone. I hoped it had all been some awful dream, but then the soft glow of my phone screen shattered that illusion. Mom was calling. I stared at the screen flashing "Mom," as if my phone was mocking me. But I picked up. "My sweet Juliet, were you okay last night? I know you were home alone." Poor thing. I froze. Her first words weren't, "I'm sorry." Not even an explanation. Just her acting like the caring mother, as if nothing had happened the night before. I responded, my voice so calm even I was surprised. "You're asking if I was okay, while you knew the whole family was having dinner at Savannah's without me?" There was a long silence on the other end. "Oh, that. I thought Jessica had taken down the post already." She slipped up. I clung to that like a blade turned backward into the wound. "So what does that mean, Mom?" "That everyone knew I was being lied to, and just hoped my cousin would delete the post before I saw it." "Juliet, don't say it like that. Everyone just wanted a peaceful evening. You know how you can be at parties, it gets tense." I gripped the phone tighter. "Tense? I make things tense? Because I don't take selfies like Savannah? Because I don't fake laugh and film it for Instagram?" Her tone dropped instantly, now tinged with that familiar passive-aggressive guilt. "You've always been like this. Too sensitive. You never try to blend in, then you isolate yourself. Don't you think you might be a bit extreme?" A hot wave surged to the top of my head. I had been lied to, excluded, and now blamed? So it's my fault? Do you even know how many times you've lied to me? Last Thanksgiving you said everyone was eating separately because of busy schedules, then posted a story thanking Savannah for hosting the whole dinner. Uncle Luke's birthday, you told me it was just a virtual toast. But I saw the barbecue in your backyard. Juliet. Her voice began to tremble, not from regret but because her facade was cracking. "You always make everything so complicated. Savannah just wanted a light-hearted evening. Not everything matches your vibe." I let out a dry, bitter laugh. "So what are you saying? I don't match the family vibe? I'm not pretty enough? Not cheerful enough? Or just not fake enough to be invited?" Mom didn't answer. Only a long sigh. Heavy. Hollow. "You have to understand, Savannah puts in a lot of effort to make things perfect. She's sensitive to tense energy. And you always bring that energy." I was stunned. A piece of me shattered in that moment. "Mom, I've spent 35 years trying not to disappoint anyone. I studied a major I didn't love because you asked me to. I stayed in Portland to help you and Dad pay off the house. I sent money every month, never missed a holiday. And Savannah? She dropped out, went to Bali to teach yoga, came back and opened a failed studio. Who are you proud of?" "That's different," she snapped. "At least she connects with people. You always keep to yourself, living in your rigid little world. I love both of you, but you love her more." I cut her off, my voice ice cold. "And I've accepted that for a long time. But don't ask me to believe I haven't been excluded. You might have fooled me before. But not anymore." A long silence followed, deep like a canyon. "If you can't forgive us, then maybe we need some time apart. Call me when you're ready to be reasonable." "You don't need to call me anymore, Mom. I'm calm enough now to see things clearly." I hung up. I didn't scream. I didn't break anything. I simply stood up, walked out onto the balcony, and let the icy Portland wind hit my face. But inside me, for the first time, it wasn't pain. It was clarity. I understood then. They didn't want me to fit in, they wanted me to disappear. And this time, I would do that, but on my own terms. And not silently. After that call, I stood on the balcony for a long time. The air was quiet except for the sound of wind whistling through snow-covered pines. But in my head, a storm of memories rushed in, fragments of my past rising from the grave like they'd never left. I remembered being 18, accepted into my dream art school in San Francisco. I held the letter with shaking hands, tears in my eyes, and showed it to my mother. She glanced at it, set it down on the table like I had just told her someone else had won the lottery. "What are you going to study there?" "Painting," she scoffed. "How do artists make a living? I didn't raise you just to have you chase fairy tales." 3 weeks later, I enrolled in accounting at Portland State, with the promise that it was the more stable choice. I buried my dreams, tucked every piece of passion into a wooden box, slid it under my bed, and never opened it again. What about Savannah? 3 years later, she dropped out of college to find herself in Thailand. My mom called it brave. My dad threw her a cozy farewell party with pastries and scented candles. I worked 12-hour days at the office, paying off my student loans while helping cover the mortgage after Dad lost his job. Some months I skipped buying a new winter coat just to send more money home. No one asked how I was managing. Then Dad had a mild stroke. I took 2 unpaid weeks off to care for him. I handled medications, cleaned, drove him to physical therapy, memorized every word the doctor said. I stayed up nights watching him sleep, afraid he might stop breathing. Savannah flew home on the 10th day, pink suitcase in hand and her phone glued to her palm. She stayed for one afternoon, took a few selfies next to Dad and posted them on Instagram with the caption, "Precious time with loved ones. Love you forever, Dad. #family first." She flew out the next morning, saying she had a can't-miss meditation class. A month later at a family gathering, I heard Mom recount the event. "Savannah is such a wonderful daughter. She flew across the world just to care for her father. Not everyone has a heart like that." I stood at the end of the table, my hands still faintly smelling of Dad's ointment, swallowing the lump in my throat. I used to wonder, was I never enough? I sent birthday cards, bought thoughtful Christmas gifts, always stopped by their house after business trips just to check the heating. I helped Mom organize her insurance papers, showed my grandparents how to use online banking. I stayed quiet, patient, never raised my voice, because I feared that if I made noise, they'd push me even further away. And what did I get in return? Blank stares, half-hearted replies, and the subtle art of being made invisible in my own family. I still remember my 30th birthday. I wasn't expecting much. Just a simple dinner and a small cake. Mom messaged, "You know how tight things are financially, let's keep it simple, okay?" I agreed. But that same night, I saw photos of the entire family throwing an extravagant party for Savannah, celebrating her year of spiritual transformation. I didn't say anything. I just turned off my phone and ate cold noodles from the fridge. Relatives would often say, "Juliet's always been so independent. She doesn't need anyone." But no one ever asked if I had ever wanted to be needed. I was always labeled as responsible, stable, reliable, but never as loved. I was the one they turned to for help, but never the one they turned to for joy. That night, after all the memories came flooding back like a tidal wave, I opened the old wooden box under my bed. Inside were messy sketches I once dreamed of displaying in a gallery. I pulled out a self-portrait, its pencil lines faded with time, but the eyes in the drawing still looked straight at me. A quiet question from the past. "Are you still in there, Juliet?" And I silently promised she would never be abandoned again. I had always stayed quiet. Always thought if I just tried harder, gave more, smiled wider, one day I'd be seen as part of the family. But that morning, as I looked back at the memory box long covered in dust, I understood more clearly than ever. My silence had never earned me acceptance. It only made it easier for them to push me aside. For the first time in my life, I decided I wouldn't stay silent anymore. I opened my laptop, took a deep breath, and began to type. The words poured out like floodwater after years of being damned. Every sentence, every word was the truth. No bitterness, no insults, just the truth they had always avoided. Subject: about Christmas Eve, and the things I can't stay silent about anymore. Hi everyone, I know most of the family gathered for a warm Christmas dinner at Savannah's. Though Mom had messaged me that the gathering was cancelled due to a red-level snowstorm, I, the only one who got that message, saw the public photos, heartfelt captions, and loving wishes, none of which included me. I want you to know, I wasn't absent by accident. I was deliberately excluded. Here's a screenshot of the message Mom sent me on the morning of December 24th. And here are photos from Jessica, Savannah, and Aunt Ruby's Instagram accounts. all posted on the same day. This wasn't a minor misunderstanding. This was a coordinated lie, one that's been happening for years. I used to believe it when Mom said, "Everyone's too busy this year," or "We're keeping the birthday quiet," or "Savannah's just visiting briefly." But I see things clearly now. And I can't pretend I don't anymore. I'm not writing this email to blame anyone or beg for affection. I just want honesty. If any of you have ever truly seen me as family, I hope you can give me that, at least once. Juliet. I hit send before I could second guess myself. Just minutes later, the first reply came from Aunt Ruby. "Julie, dear, this must be a misunderstanding. No one meant any harm. But why send such a heavy message during the holidays?" Soon after, Jessica texted me privately, "You're overreacting. I deleted the post already. Don't make this a big deal. It's just family stuff." I didn't respond. I didn't need their excuses or their attempts to cover their tracks. Savannah was next. Her email was nearly a full page filled with polished phrases and emotional language. "I don't understand why you're acting this way. You always isolate yourself, then blame everyone else. I just wanted a Christmas that wasn't tense or judgmental or surrounded by negative energy. Not inviting you doesn't mean I don't care. I just chose peace." Peace by excluding me? I thought, but I didn't reply. Then came Mom's email. It was so short it stunned me. "I'm disappointed. You chose the worst possible time to stir trouble and slander the family. If you have any sense left, you'll take down that email before things get worse." I stared at that last line. Before things get worse. A threat? Or a familiar warning? "Be good, Juliet. Just like you always are." I didn't respond right away. Instead, I saved every email, every message, every quickly deleted comment, as if they were puzzle pieces in a picture they never wanted anyone to see clearly. That afternoon, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Some called. Some texted. My grandma messaged saying young people can be impulsive, and my uncle wrote, "You made your mom cry all day." No one apologized. No one asked how I felt. They were all just upset that I had broken the silence they called peace. When night came, I turned off all notifications, shut my laptop, and stared at the ceiling. I knew the first wave had hit, but more were coming. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid. 3 days after I sent that email to the entire family, buried beneath the blame-filled messages and guilt-laced, "You ruined the holiday" notes, a name popped up that made me freeze for a second. Rachel Monroe. It took me a moment to remember who she was. A longtime family friend who had once been my father's financial advisor. She'd retired and moved to a small coastal town over 200 miles from Portland. I'd never had direct contact with her, just a vague memory of her hugging me tightly at my grandfather's funeral nearly 15 years ago. Her message was just one line. "Juliet, I think it's time you knew the truth. If possible, let's meet in person. I can't let them keep lying to you." We met at a small cafe in the suburbs, so quiet I could hear the spoon clink against the glass as Rachel stirred her tea. She appeared delicate with neatly tied silver hair, but her eyes were tense. She didn't waste time. She reached into her bag, pulled out an old brown envelope, and slid it across the table. "I've held on to these for too long. And now, after seeing how they've treated you, I can't stay silent any longer." I opened the envelope. Inside was a stack of clipped documents, bank statements, legal paperwork, a photocopy of my grandfather's will, and transfer records with my name crossed out. I flipped through each page, my vision blurring. "Juliet shall receive the full educational fund totaling $276,000 from the trust established in 2007. Guardian, Charles Wellington, biological father." I looked at Rachel wide-eyed. "Grandpa left that money for me? Why didn't I ever know?" "Because they never told you," Rachel replied, her voice cracking. "Charles told me they would inform you on your 21st birthday. But when that day came, I discovered the account had been emptied." She paused, eyes filled with quiet sorrow. "I asked about it. They said you didn't need it, you were already financially stable, and that Savannah needed support to start her personal journey. I was then asked to step down as advisor, and I stayed quiet." I couldn't breathe. I remembered being 21, juggling 2 part-time jobs to cover my accounting tuition. I once had to choose between paying rent on time or staying enrolled. With trembling hands, I turned to the next page. A ledger of transactions moving money from my trust to an account under Savannah Wellington's name annotated with support to Open Yoga Center, $40,000. Retreat expenses in Bali, $12,500. Studio recovery after financial failure, $35,000. Personal spending, $9,200. Felt like all the air was sucked from my chest. Nearly $300,000, gone without my knowledge, to fund my sister's journey to freedom, the same sister who once called me stifling and negative. But what about the inheritance? Grandpa left us the house and the cabin in Washington. Rachel nodded, eyes downcast. He left everything to both of you, split evenly. But do you remember when you were 18, your mother had you sign a packet of documents she called emergency medical authorization? I froze. I remembered that day. Mom said it was just in case something ever happened to her and Dad, and they needed someone to sign on their behalf. I signed without a second thought. That wasn't just a medical form, Rachel said quietly. It was a full financial power of attorney, valid until revoked. Your parents used it to sell the cabin and the inherited house. All proceeds went straight into Savannah's account. I never signed anything giving consent, I whispered. But with that power of attorney, they didn't need your consent. It was all legal but utterly unethical. I collapsed onto the table, palms cold, lips stiff. My entire youth had been marked by sacrifice, by scarcity, by struggle, while the very people I trusted most were draining my future from the shadows. Why are you telling me this now? I asked, barely audible. Rachel pulled out her phone and showed me a Facebook post, a beaming photo of Savannah in her newly reopened studio captioned, "Rebirth after challenge. Grateful for my family's support. Nothing is impossible. Because I can't bear to watch the person who stole your future be celebrated like a hero," she said. Your grandfather left that fund because he knew you were the only one strong enough to stand on your own. And he was right. I clutched the stack of papers. My chest ached like it was being crushed, but something else had started to stir. A fire. A clear, burning anger. I'm an accountant, I said, slow and steady. I know how to trace every penny. And in that moment I understood. The game they thought they could manipulate from the shadows was about to end. I left the cafe with trembling hands and a resolve I had never felt before. My entire life I'd been sidelined with sweet words laced in control. But now enough was enough. I'm an accountant. I know how to trace money. I can read every line of a contract like it's a coded message. And now I would use that skill to demand justice. For the next 3 days I didn't sleep more than 3 hours a night. My tiny apartment became a war room. My dining table covered in documents, invoices, bank statements, and ownership certificates. I pulled every transaction from the accounts Rachel had pointed out, using forensic tools I once used for corporate audits to reconstruct over a decade of financial deceit. Savannah had received at least 11 large transfers, all labeled family support or startup investment. The inheritance fund had been siphoned off in chunks, disguised as international training fees, retreat sponsorship, or real estate investments. I compiled everything into a detailed 27-page report, complete with supporting evidence, signatures, seals, and a photocopy of the full power of attorney I'd been tricked into signing at 18. Then I reached out to Sharon Kim, a lawyer specializing in estate fraud and will disputes. I had previously worked with her during a corporate embezzlement case. Sharon read through the file in just 3 hours and called me immediately. "Juliet, I don't need a single more piece of evidence. This is textbook abuse of guardianship and unlawful transfer of inherited assets. If you agree, I'll send them a formal notice." I nodded instantly. No more hesitation. We drafted an official legal demand addressed to 3 people, my parents and Savannah. Inside the envelope were a list of the assets and funds misappropriated, detailed evidence of each unauthorized transaction, a demand for full repayment within 72 hours, and a signed acknowledgement of wrongdoing or face criminal charges. Sharon had it notarized and sent via email, certified mail, and hand-signed express delivery. I wasn't afraid to confront them anymore. 3 days passed. Silence. Not a word. No apology. Not even a single text. Instead, I got a tip from a friend at a local bank. My father had emptied his account and moved the funds to an anonymous trust in Nevada. Savannah had filed for the cancellation of her yoga studio's tax ID. My mother? She had started calling friends, claiming I was having a mental breakdown after a personal trauma. They didn't choose dialogue. They chose to hide. I sighed. I knew they wouldn't change. And I knew exactly what I had to do. The next morning, Sharon and I walked into the Multnomah County Courthouse with a full case file and a civil complaint. Every page was meticulously prepared. The court clerk stamped our filing, sealed the receipt, and I felt as if my spine had finally straightened after years of wait. I stepped out of the courthouse into the cold winter sun, and felt like I was truly breathing free. Sharon leaned in and said softly, "They'll be served within days. And I promise, they won't be able to hide from the truth anymore." That night it was like someone had set off a siren. My father called me 6 times. I didn't answer. My mother texted a 4-paragraph message, calling me an ungrateful daughter, claiming everything they did was to protect me from a harsh world. I didn't respond. Savannah posted a long Instagram story, a black and white photo with the caption, "When jealous people try to destroy your energy, it means you're on the right path." I laughed. There was no bitterness left. Because I knew, this time the law was on my side. 2 weeks after we filed the lawsuit, I got a call from Sharon at 7 o'clock in the morning. Her voice held urgency, but also a hint of satisfaction. "The search warrant's been approved. Police are executing it today. And Julie, if you want to witness it, they won't stop you." I sat in silence for a moment. Not out of fear, but because the day I thought would only ever exist in dreams had arrived. Around 9 o'clock that morning, I stood across the street from the familiar Redwood House in Rose City Park, my childhood home where I once believed that family meant forever. A black SUV with no license plates stopped at the gate. 3 plainclothes officers stepped out, warrant in hand. Another officer followed, wearing a chest camera. My mother answered the door in a pale blue silk nightgown, eye cream still under her eyes. I saw her freeze the moment she saw the officer's badge. Within seconds, the calm expression I'd seen my whole life completely shattered. "This is a mistake. There must be some misunderstanding. We're respected people in this neighborhood." I could hear her yelling clearly from across the street. But no one budged. My father tried to maintain his usual composure, like he was still handling a business deal. But when the police pulled financial records from the drawer, I saw his hand clench until it turned white. Savannah wasn't there. Because the officers had gone straight to her new yoga studio downtown, right in the middle of her live-streamed morning meditation class. The moment the officer appeared on camera, asking everyone to stop, the video cut off abruptly. But the clip quickly went viral online. From being praised as an inspiring entrepreneur in local media, Savannah suddenly became a suspect under federal investigation for inheritance theft and financial fraud. Within 48 hours, the Rise Root Yoga Studio was shut down, assets frozen, website taken offline. The news spread fast. A headline from the Portland Gazette read, "Wellington family accused of 6-figure inheritance theft, glamour unmasked." People online started digging up Savannah's old posts, linking her spiritual awakening in Bali to the funds she received from family support, which was really my college savings and inheritance. Many relatives who had previously left my email unread suddenly went silent. A few even quietly deleted comments where they'd called me too sensitive or addicted to playing the victim. I didn't feel vindictive, just relieved. Like I had finally spoken up for the younger Juliet, who had spent her whole life feeling invisible in her own family. Aunt Ruby, the one who once called me cold and overly logical, sent a short message. "If you need a witness for your mom's lies, I'm willing." I thanked her but declined. I already had enough proof. More importantly, I no longer needed their validation. My parents were interrogated at the police station for 8 hours. They were released but prohibited from accessing any accounts under investigation. Savannah lawyered up and vanished from social media. I knew this was just the beginning. Court dates, lawyers, civil proceedings, it would take time. But for the first time in my life, this fight wasn't mine alone. It was now a public reckoning, and I stood in the eye of the storm, steady, unshaken, no longer ashamed. Someone asked me once if I regretted it, losing my family. I just smiled. To me now, family isn't about shared blood. It's about shared truth, shared justice, and mutual respect. I lost my blood family, but I found myself. 1 year later. I'm sitting in the warm little kitchen of my new apartment in Boulder, Colorado, where winter paints everything white, but my heart has never felt warmer. Leaving Portland wasn't easy. But after the final court hearing, once the truth was laid bare and justice served, I knew I had to begin again. Somewhere without memories hiding in every corner. Somewhere without streets that reminded me of missed calls and gatherings I wasn't invited to. I didn't choose Boulder because it was some dream destination, but precisely because I had no memories here. And in that moment, that was the greatest gift I could have asked for. I got a job at a small accounting firm co-founded by a husband and wife team. No one here knows about the Wellington scandal, and no one looks at me with pity or curiosity. They just know me as Juliet, the one who's always on time, meticulous, and makes the perfect chamomile tea. After a few months, I got used to not having to try so hard to be accepted. I joined a Saturday afternoon art class, for the first time since I gave up my artistic dreams at 18. At first, my hands trembled holding a pencil. But soon, the strokes and colors came back like breathing, and I saw that younger version of myself return. No one needed to give her permission. No one needed to believe in her. I was enough. I made friends who knew nothing about my family. They liked me for who I was. The one who listened, brought pastries to class, and always offered free financial advice when someone needed it. I'm no longer Juliet, daughter of Charles and Linda Wellington. I'm just Juliet. And for the first time, that's enough. One March afternoon, Rachel came to visit me. She had moved to a town near Denver to be closer to her grandchildren. I picked her up at the bus stop, and we had lunch together at a little cafe with sunlight pouring through the windows. She was just the same, calm, wise, and with the warmest eyes I've ever seen. Juliet, I have something for you. She placed an old photo album on the table, its brown leather cover worn at the corners. I opened it and was speechless. Photos of me with Grandpa when I was about 7 or 8. In one, I was sitting in his lap, holding a pencil and scribbling. In another, he was taking me fishing, his arm wrapped around my shoulders, looking at me like I was his whole world. I gently ran my hand across the page, feeling each crease, each faded corner. Your grandfather always believed you were the strongest of them all, Rachel said, eyes distant. He knew they favored Savannah. But he believed that one day, you would rise and live true to the best part of yourself. I smiled, heart aching but at peace. I had survived. Not just to make it through, but to rise above. The remaining inheritance after the lawsuit was transferred to my account under the supervision of an independent attorney. I didn't splurge. I used part of it to create a small scholarship fund for art students, so that those like me, once forced to choose stability over passion, could have a second chance. The rest I spent on a small cabin by Lake Estes where I could paint, bake, and rewrite my own story on my own terms. Most of my old relatives no longer keep in touch. Some tried to reconnect, but I only responded with polite distance. Because forgiveness doesn't mean I have to let them back into my life. Once a coworker asked me, if you could go back and change it all, would you? I thought for a long time. And then I answered, no. Because if none of that had happened, I'd still be that girl sitting in the shadows, trying hard enough just to be seen. But no. I step into the light on my own. And this time no one can switch it off. I closed the album. Outside the window, snow had started to fall lightly. But inside me, winter had long since passed. Juliet's story is a powerful reminder that not everyone who shares your blood deserves to be called family. In life, sometimes the painful truth is the very key that unlocks freedom. When you dare to stand up, to face the facts, and reclaim your worth, you don't just get back what was stolen. You discover a stronger version of yourself. Justice isn't just the law. It's the courage to speak what's right, even when you're standing alone. What do you think of Juliet's choice? Would you have the courage to do the same if it were you? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel so you never miss another powerful family story.